Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Ghostbusters Afterlife, starring Carrie Coon, Finn Wolfhard, McKenna Grace, Logan Kim, Celeste O'Connor, and Paul Rudd, directed by Jason Reitman. Now, was I excited to see this? Maybe in the first time? Yeah. I mean, I've only seen the movie once for sure, but is it something worth going back to after the original movie and that one remake that I'm not going to bring up because that doesn't matter to me. Let's get into this one. A proton blast shoots out of the top of a mine shaft and into a swirling vortex of clouds under a midnight sky as an old pickup truck comes hauling out of the mine shaft and down a desolate rural road. And for a second, I couldn't tell you it was who it was at first, as we find out the driver is the bearded elderly man obscured in the darkness of his truck's cabin, and I'm looking at him like, who the hell is that? He looks down at the passenger seat and touches a ghost trap that's holding a spirit, which seems dangerous unless you're a Ghostbuster, as his truck is being chased by an unseen creature that is eventually able to sideswipe the vehicle and send it crashing into a cornfield, which is a good chase scene. The man stumbles out into an open field in front of an old farmhouse that looks deserted, and he gets to the porch and turns around and holds up the trap, baiting the unseen spirit in the cornfield. And who is the old man? The old man is, drumroll please, Egon Spankler, who is the Harold Ramis character. And he was, yeah, or yeah, that sounds right. And he readies a foot pedal switch as invisible steps and are seen advancing in the dirt across the field, which is a nice trick. When it is in position, Egon stomps on the pedal, and several electric towers begin to active, but they short out before powering on the device they were intended for, and Egon quickly goes inside and shuts the door as he hides the trap in a compartment under the wood floor, and then sits in a chair with his PKE meter as fog fills the room. His PKE begins to light up, and its arms extend reminiscent of a ghost is present, which is a scary situation. And I like the fact that it has its scary moments, at the appropriate times, as it's handled very nicely. Egon is attacked in his chair, and the PKE meter falls to the floor and turns off when a spirit orb is seen leaving the house from outside and back in the house. The PKE meter activates again, eluding to a new ghost nearby, and this as an opening scene isn't as good as the original opening sequence, but it sets up a fun, entertaining time, unlike Ghostbusters 2 and that unfortunate film, which I'm going to ignore thanks to this movie. We meet Callie, played by Carrie Coon, and her kids Trevor, played by Finn Wolfhard, and Phoebe, played by McKenna Grace, as they are getting evicted from their apartment. And to be honest, that's not enough characters arc to get to know them, but it's enough to set up the plot of the movie. Callie gets notice that her father passed away in the farmhouse in Oklahoma and takes the kids with her to collect anything of value, including the home, as it is a nice house, and they find a dilapidated house. I don't know if I'm saying that right, please forgive me. Full of clutter, and when I first saw this, I thought this guy has his theories as they're looking around. Janine, the Ghostbusters receptionist, returned by Annie Potts, walks in and tells them that Callie's dad, who happens to be Egon, had a lot of debt and valueless farm as the ground begins to shake in what appears to be tremors from an earthquake, and the family huddled under a table. And as the line I remember that summer we hid under the table did make me laugh, as it was in the trailer. Phoebe spots the PKE meter under the chair her grandfather was in when he died. And I'm having a good time with the characters, sure, but I connect more with the kids than Callie at this point, as she doesn't seem to care. Callie takes Trevor and Phoebe into town to eat after she admits to them that they will be staying for a while until she can figure out what to do. And yeah, some lie you came up with, Callie. But it did kind of bother me, but hell, I'll move on. This is the plot for this movie. They find that it's a very small southern town where everyone knew of the mysterious man they called the dirt farmer, since there was no evidence he ever grew any crops. While Trevor applies for work at the burger joint because he is smitten with the girl who works there named Lucky, played by Celeste O'Connor. And as the movie progresses, they become a very cute as a couple in the following days. Phoebe begins exploring the farm with using the PKE meter as she notices a chessboard with an initial move made, so she makes a move from her side of the board, and as it freaks her out. And it is kind of reminding me of the greatest hits of the original Ghostbusters film. Callie starts Phoebe in summer school and meets a teacher named Gary, played by Paul Rudd, as she drops her off and have an awkward conversation with Gary as it felt it. Gary is there to just collect a paycheck and has the kids watch VHSs of horror movies. The first one being Cujo while he sits in the back doing research on the ongoing tremors in the area. And this is a bad teacher right off the bat, as he leaves the kids to watch R-rated movies like that in the original Child's Play, Cujo in the original Child's Play. And he would have been fired a long time ago if he showed films like that at school. Phoebe impresses Gary with her knowledge on seismology, and he explains to her that tremor wave patterns don't match up with the typical earthquakes from history, which makes sense. And I'm not a fan of the character Paul Rudd plays either. Phoebe also meets a boy in her class, calls himself Podcast, played by Logan Kim, since he's always recording for his show with this microphone, and he's kind of relatable as the best friend slash comic relief. Back at the farmhouse, Phoebe sees that another move is made on the chessboard and begins playing with the ghost as the chess pieces begin to move in front of her, which is freaky as hell. And the ghost leads her downstairs by turning on lights until she finds the ghost trap. Under a floor panel, which is a classic Ghostbusters at best, she takes it to Gary, where he explains what it is based on his knowledge of the famed New York siege from 1984. He shows her and Podcast old footage of the Ghostbusters commercial on YouTube, which holds up well today digitally, I'll say. They rig the trap to a school bus to get it to open. They succeed, and a ghost resembling one of the demon dogs from the original flies away, which was rather funny but not hilarious at best, like the original film. Revelations come to a fruition as Trevor finds Ecto-1 in the barn under a tarp, and Phoebe finds Egon's lab in the basement, which is cleverly hidden. They both realize their heritage and begin to take matters into their own hands, which is super dangerous at their age. While Phoebe repairs a proton blaster with help from Egon's invisible ghost and takes it out for a test with Podcast tagging along. Upon firing it, they hear a rustling in a nearby warehouse where they find the metal-eating ghost named Muncher, and the CGI looked fine at best. They attempt to wrangle and capture him, but fail. Meanwhile, Trevor repairs Ecto-1 and takes it for a joyride, where he comes up upon Phoebe and Podcast, who tell him what they were doing as the trio take off to capture Muncher in Ecto-1. They chase him through the city and destroys tons of property with the proton gun, which is a hell of a lot of fun that they chase him in the Ghostbusters mobile. They succeed in capturing it, and with Egon's RC car mounted ghost trap at the chaos altered the police, and they are subsequently pulled over and put in the town's holding cell. During their time in the jailhouse, Phoebe uses her one phone call option to call the number of the Ghostbusters commercial, which is also clever. And who answers? Ray Stantz, returned by Dan Aykroyd, answers and explains them that the team broke up after they had ostensibly eliminated all the ghosts. He and Egon had a falling out after Egon stole all their equipment, claiming Gozer could still bring the end of the world, which is a sad conversation, as Phoebe tells him that Egon was killed a week ago before she is abruptly cut off by the sheriff, claiming her phone time is up. Kelly and Gary, who were out on the date during all of this, show up and bail them out. And it was funny when Paul Rudd sees the equipment for the first time, like nice toys. I busted up laughing. Come on, Paul Rudd is comedic in general. Phoebe confronts her mom for not telling her who their grandfather really was. Kelly counters with the history she had with her dad, as she says something like she wasn't into science like she was, and felt like they never bonded and he didn't care about her, which is a bunch of nonsense because how could a father not care about their own kids? Unless they ditched you as a baby anyways. That's why he left them and became a recluse on the Oklahoma from farm, she concluded, which doesn't make much sense, and hopefully this movie doesn't fall apart. The kids feeling got to be a reason their grandfather would sacrifice everything to live in a farm in the middle of nowhere, finding in his lab that his dirt farm was actually a field of hundreds of ghost traps meant to capture Gozer. As I'm liking this movie, but at times it does fall apart, as it's not as good as the original, but it's the best sequel in my opinion. They realize that his trap must have failed and set off to investigate the mine shaft once more. By this time, Lucky has become close with Trevor through work and the discovery that she is the sheriff's daughter, which is so convenient, so she tags along to the mine with Trevor, Phoebe, and Podcast. They discovered the root of all the tremors is the fact that the mine is actually a portal of the evil dead, and every time Gozer attempts to raise the herd of ghosts along with the twin demon dogs, a series of 4 seismic activated proton guns that Egon rigged up inside turn on, which is so dumb. They automatically cross beams and suppress the constant attempts of ghosts trying to escape, which was the source of the recurrent tremors everyone in town was experiencing, and holding Gozer back was the insurmountable task Egon had taken on alone, since no one else believes him. As this is a town movie cliche. I have seen this many times, as this is getting a little problematic, it's kind of falling downhill that same night. Gary goes to Walmart to pick up some ice cream after his unusual date with Callie. He discovers several mini Stay Puffed marshmallow men roaming the store cause chaos like a bunch of gremlins, which is probably the stupidest scene for a Ghostbusters movie, as this is Ghostbusters, not Gremlins, despite I've seen Gremlins once in my life, and haven't thought about it since. Maybe one day I'll review it, but we'll see. He comes upon the demon dog he released earlier and gets chased out of his car and attacked just like the scene from Cujo, which I have never seen to this day, and I don't really want to, but the way it's executed here is just so stupid. Back at the farmhouse, Callie finds the hidden lab and finds that her dad Egon had a memory board, of all her life on the wall. Just as she realizes that he truly cared about her, the other demon dog finds her in the lab and possesses her, like what happened to Sigourney Weaver in the original, but done not as good. The kids come home to reveal their discovery to Kelly, but find her possessed before she jumps out of the window and runs off towards the mine shaft. She finds Gary, who has already allowed the ghost to start escaping, but damaging the proton gun that were keeping them at bay. And as they're demons, it seems like a monster that can talk, but can barely be understood. The two merge energies in the mine. The kids retrieve Ecto-1 from the police impound with Lucky's help. Phoebe and Podcast are able to get to the RC, Ghost Trap, and Proton Blaster out from the weapon holding cell by reaching in and releasing Muncher, who immediately eats away the bars and escapes, which was funny, but at the same time kind of dumb. They arrive at the mine and witness Callie and Gary transforming into demons, dogs, farms, with Gozer sitting between them. Phoebe steps out from hiding to talk to and distract Gozer while Podcast controls the RC trap and captures the demon dog possessing Callie, which frustrated me, as the second half of this is more frustrating than the first half in my opinion. This releases her from the dog form as she passes out, which is stupid. The kids escape in Ecto 1 with Callie as Gary is still possessed in dog form, chases after them. And this chase was sort of fun, but I'm getting a little frustrated with the movie at this point. They make their way to the farmhouse and attempt the same trap as Egon, Callie, and Phoebe stand on the porch holding the ghost trap with the demon dog that Gozer needs to become fully resurrected. Gozer appears out of the cornfield, and Phoebe tries to turn on the traps, but they fail again just as they hold the first time with Egon. And I'm like, I knew the original Ghostbusters would make a cameo, and at this point in the movie, just as Gozer is about to kill Phoebe, she is hit with a proton blast from behind. It's Ray Stantz, who has just arrived with Peter Venkman, returned by Bill Murray, and Winston Zedmore, returned by Ernie Hudson. And at the same point, I'm kind of happy they're back but with Bill Murray and Ernie Hudson, I'm thinking what took them so long is my question for this entire movie. The three original Ghostbusters cross the beams and fire at Gozer. She appears subdued, but then begins uncrossing the beams and blasts the Ghostbusters back, causing them all to fall down. Gozer approaches them as Peter jokingly complains about the inherent troubles in their relationship, which is such bad timing. And I'm like, no, Bill, not the time. Just as she reaches them, she is again captured by a soul proton beam. This time it's Phoebe whose aim is being guided by the ghost of Egon. This is the first time his image is revealed to the audience, and I thought, why would you CGI him in the first place? I mean, come on. Leave him alone, resting in peace. The original three Ghostbusters jump up and join the battle by firing their beams as well. With the combined force of four beams, once again, Gozer is suppressed but not captured. Trevor emerges from Ecto 1 and fired his proton beam to the electrical towers, which is a cool trick. The burst of energy fires them up and activates all the traps under the dirt field. Gozer and the demon dogs are destroyed. This kind of is cool action with the question of why CGI Harold Ramis in the first place, which is the most problematic. The three living Ghostbusters stare in amazement at the sight of the ghost form of their fallen comrade. They watch as he says goodbye to fixes Phoebe's glasses, identical to his, and gives Callie a hug, whose form fades and dissipates into the night sky. Lucky and Gary break free of the frozen dog carcasses, and Winston says he's going to fix up Ecto 1. Overhead shot of Ecto 1 driving with emergency lights on back in New York City, which was a nice way to end the movie. But during the credits, Peter and Dana Barrett, returned by Sigourney Weaver, play around with the ESP cards, an electric shock device he used in the first film, which was kind of funny as the score to this entire movie was familiar in that scene and throughout the movie. And after the credits, we see Egon and Janine from the 1980s as Janine gives Egon something as Janine once meets with Winston, and as he puts Ecto 1 in a garage they owned in the first film, and something blinks like there's going to be a sequel. And the climax, well, as the second half of the movie was frustrating, but it was nice to see the original Ghostbusters back. But I would personally leave Harold Ramis alone, resting in peace, as the guy is unfortunately dead, which is why I keep saying that to begin with. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 5.9 out of 10. This may be the best Ghostbusters sequel, in my opinion, but not the best Ghostbusters movie. That's the first one, as the first half was fun, but the second half was rather frustrating. I connected more with the kids more than with the adults, which is so unlike the series, in my opinion, but it's a fine movie with the plot so familiar, like the score to this movie is also familiar. It was nice to see the original Ghostbusters again, including Annie Potts and Sigourney Weaver, but at the end of the day, the script was kind of a mess, but overall, it was alright. I don't think this will win any awards by any means, but it's a good time at the movies. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for Ghostbusters, and until then, we came, we saw, we kicked its ass.